Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we are going to have an interesting show today, and I know it's near and dear to your heart because it's on sibling loss, and it's a unique loss. It's a unique sibling bonds is what I titled the show, because we have siblings who were both dentists, but you can introduce them, and this is an incredible story and very uplifting.
Yes, Mom. As you said, this topic is near and dear to my heart. We are going to talk about unique sibling bonds today. And I think, it's interesting because most people will spend 80 to 100% of their lifetimes with their siblings on this earth. They are a big part of who we are. They're a big part of our identity. They're a big part of our life. So it is pretty devastating to have a sibling die, especially one that dies before their time. And we will be talking about the unique bonds today with our expert who has been personally through this. And her name is Dr. Parul Dua Makkar. She is a dentist. And her brother, Dr. Manu Duo, was also a dentist. Her brother, Manu, died in March of 2021 from oral cancer. In honor of her brother, Dr. Makkar is working to raise awareness on head and neck cancer. She has published her brother's inspirational blogs in the book, Life Interrupted, Dr. Duo's Survival Guide. And it is a phenomenal book, and we will be talking a little bit about that today. So welcome to the show, Parul.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, both of you. It's an honor.
It's great having you on today. And it's pretty incredible. First of all, that you were both dentists.
Yes, we're both dentists. So he was almost 8 years younger than me. So he followed my footsteps into the dental field. And we did a lot of stuff to dentistry together, took courses. He built his office. He guided me to build mine. We would share cases because we were so far apart in age. So we were in different life positions. He was single, unmarried. I had kids. So we had different life tracks. But what connected us was dentistry.
Well, Parul, and I loved reading about your childhood in the book. I mean, you talk about growing up in Dubai and how, although you were 7.5 years apart, you were extremely close growing up.
Yes. He was, we didn't have any other family around because we didn't have cousins that lived near us. We would go visit them once a year on family trips. So it was just me and him. I took care of him. We were latchkey kids back in those days, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where we were close. He looked up to me in some ways. And then later on in life, I looked up to him.
So tell us a little bit about his journey and what happened.
So Manu was a vibrant young man in his early 30s, saw a lesion on his tongue. And, like any other 30-year-old is not thinking cancer, nobody's thinking. And he wasn't at a high risk, not a chain smoker, heavy drinker with no predisposition conditions. So cancer wasn't on his mind, and the biopsy was a little bit later. By the time it was biopsied, it was already in the lymph nodes. And he had a big surgery, which I talk about in the book, and he recovered from it. He visited me in New York. He recovered from an 8-hour surgery with half his tongue being resected, learning to chew, talk. There were some missteps, but that's a topic for another day. But the cancer, because of the missteps, not getting late diagnosis, along with not getting chemoradiation after the initial surgery, cancer returned. And this was at the time of COVID. This was April of 2020. So COVID's just hitting. He resided in Canada, borders shut down. So it was a tough time and having to redo another surgery. And I think a part of going through loss is having emotional support, whether it's like a hug or a friendly face when you get up from surgery, going through chemoradiation. Having that emotional support is key. And he didn't have that. We didn't have that as a family in general. I couldn't go. And my parents were dealing with a lot of the loss alone.
He was diagnosed, and within 2 years, he died.
Right. The initial cancer was 2019, and then it reappeared. He had a surgery, it reappeared in 2020. So he had chemo radiation that summer of 2020. And the cancer just progressively, it was very aggressive. And PET scans weren't done in time to see the metastasis. And it progressed to his bones, down to his pelvic bone. And then it was deemed inoperable December of 2020. He had a chest port placed. And at that point, I flew down with a special permission from the government of Canada. I had to go in a compassion release because you had to isolate and quarantine for 2 weeks if you were coming for a visit. You couldn't just go. For him to go get immunotherapy, chemotherapy, it was in isolation. They would drop him and pick him up. All doctors' visits were alone. He was admitted for 2 weeks in the hospital for high white blood cell counts. He was in isolation, so they were not allowed to visit at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, how difficult for you?
Yeah. Just, for your listeners, besides being a sister and a daughter, I'm also a business owner. I'm a dentist. I am a mom, a wife. I play many roles. So it's very hard to navigate. When I knew that his cancer had spread to his lungs and it was inoperable and he had the chest put in because he was getting fluid buildup, that's when I was pushed by people I know to go see him because he's not got time on his hands. So I literally dropped everything I was doing, got some help and shut down my practice for 2 weeks, 1 week to travel, 1 week to quarantine when I came back from Canada, because I was not vaccinated. Vaccines were not available. And US required me to quarantine when I got back. So that scare of having to contract COVID that is killing, millions of people. There was a difficult choice I had to make, that should I leave my family, travel alone to see my brother who's dying, or watch what's happening on not be able to do anything. So I had a tough call to make, and I flew in.
Wow.
And some of this, Parul, I can identify with a little bit. My father died 16 months ago. And I personally flew out to California several times, but was not allowed to see him. And so at the end, I never saw him again. And that, it's like you said, very stressful and very traumatic. And your brother has only been gone since March of 2021. And I'm wondering what's helped you along the way.
So this book definitely helped me. So we had talked about, he'd been writing because he was in isolation. His grief was writing. It was his outlet. And instead of being negative and feeling, why did I get this set of cards dealt to me? Life's not fair. Why me? He focused his energy on writing his thoughts, and they were so profound. And I don't think it's mostly just for Dennis. It's really for anybody who's going through a tough time, and really focusing your energy to what's truly important, and getting your self-happiness. We couldn't see him if he was getting any major surgery, and he was getting radiation. So he told me, I'm getting radiation, come see me when I'm done. So my husband and I booked tickets, and for us to travel, we need to get this compassion release, which is only valid for a month. So I went in December, and then I had to reapply for March of 21. I had tickets to go see him on the 20th of March. Mm-hmm. And however, before that, a week prior, he was taken into, he had a pulmonary embolism. He went into hospice, and body started shutting down. What prevented me from making it in time was a PCR test, because Canada would not allow a rapid test. And I was vaccinated at this point. Mm-hmm. But because of the strict border restrictions, I couldn't. So I had to say goodbye to him on WhatsApp. And, by the time I booked and I was ready to go, he had passed. And it was that he was hanging between life and death. And I actually told him, let go. Do not wait for me. If you need to go, go. And I think he almost needed that permission.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He died within hours of me saying that. While I'm practically calling Canadian consulate, I'm calling my PCP on a Sunday. I'm like, can you get me a PCR test right away? I need to be on a plane like yesterday. And it was just the timing. I couldn't make it. So I knew flying that I'm planning his funeral. And then the grief, I think, was when I entered his house, I got his laptop, I found his writings, and then just writing on his laptop, his words, his story was a way to let go of the feelings and the anger, because this is what he started and I was helping him finish it.
Well, I can certainly understand why reading his words has helped you, because he was very optimistic. So like you said, reading someone's belief in how they live their life would be helpful, especially when they come from someone so positive.
Right. At no point did he lose hope. At no point.
He says here in the book, and the chapter on hope, I love that you're saying this, hope is the savior that gets us through our adversity.
Yes. And he talks about whether you get what you hope for or not, that's not the point. The point is you never let go of it. Otherwise, and he said he would fight to the end, whether he lives or not, makes it to another day, he will fight with every breath.
At the end of the book, you talk about seeing him again on the very last page.
I do. And even we just had a book signing, and I expressed that, I'll never know why he left early, what his journey was completed. Maybe that's what people say, and your purpose is done and you leave. And I say that maybe I'll see him, then I'll ask him. And I don't think I have the faith in religion more so, but in the universe, if that makes a difference. Because in the year that I have been grieving, I have come across a lot of people that have helped me in their way to let go of anger and go through the stages of grief. So I believe in the power of the universe, and in some way, somehow, I will see him. I do get signs, and I'll share a very simple example. Is the eve of my birthday, it was in my house in Canada, and I was going through my stuff, and I found a little note that was written 22 years ago on hotel stationery when we traveled as a family. And I know, it's from a hotel in Toronto. I'm like, I know when this was written, because we had traveled as a family on my birthday. And it was written, "Happy birthday, Didi," which means older sister. And it was on the eve of my birthday. So I don't believe in that being a coincidence. I believe that these are messages from him.
Mm-hmm.
There are these little, it's just me finding a way to listen to those signs. So they're there. So I think I believe in that.
I know you're doing some things to promote dentists to look for cancer, that kind of thing. And that's a wonderful thing as a legacy to bring through there.
Yes, because it's such a preventable form of cancer, and it's not like a mole in the back of your body that you cannot see and you don't feel it. This is something visible in your face, your body. And I think in his case, it was a missed or a late diagnosis, but I feel like if we kind of push for early diagnosis and listening to our patients and letting patients self-screen, like we do a breast screening exam to self-screen, and you see a node that you didn't feel before in your neck, or you're having trouble swallowing, little signs like that. If you listen to your body, ask for that biopsy, ask for that consult. The cost of not doing the biopsy is a life, and we've paid that price.
So Parul, for those out there that are watching you today and don't have hope and have recently had a loss, what would you say to them?
I really believe in the magic of universe. Things may not go always as planned, and it really seems bleak at times. And sometimes you feel alone in that loss because nobody else understands until you're going through it. And, you'll feel resentment, anger, unfairness, but at some point you will also feel a sense of peace and calm. It will come. You just have to believe in that power of an ultimate purpose and listen, and it answers to you, not maybe in the way you want it to be, but there is a higher purpose to it. You just have to believe in it. And there is happiness at the end of the tunnel. You just have to go through some rough patches sometimes.
You know, I'm hearing you have such a good and positive attitude. I'm wondering if there's somebody in your life or some experience in your life that you think has supported you to be able to move through this.
I don't have a choice. I cannot go back. I cannot replace him. I will never have him pick me up from the airport. I will never be an aunt. My kids will never have cousins. I've lost, in that present, I lost the keeper of my past and a potential future. So I don't have a choice. We always are given two choices. You can either take a situation and be all miserable and pathetic about it and say, woe is me, I'm the worst luck in the world. Everybody else is so lucky. Grass is always green on the other side. Or you can take it and say, this is what happened. I cannot undo this. All I can do is maybe it not happen to another person. Maybe I be a support for somebody else because I know what that loss is like when others may not. And I can help and support, change thinking, be a positive influence. Our children are always watching. I have 2 boys and life will go on. So for them, for benefit of others, there is a way to navigate through your grief. I will not say that every day is cheery and sunny disposition. There are a lot of times I feel that loss all out of the blue. It'll come like a tsunami and it'll take my breath away. But then there are times when I say it's okay. There's got to be something, and I can only be the one to help myself, right? I cannot make somebody change my attitude. So if I don't go in with that positive thinking, it won't happen because I have a lot of people relying on me. So I think that kind of helps me guide and move forward. And he left a manuscript behind, so it had to be shared.
Well, I was going to say, Parul, you sound a lot like Manu. You both have very similar ways of looking at the world, and a lot of what you're saying reminds me of some of the things that he said, right? I mean, he chose to live a life of hope and positivity despite all the adversity he had. So I love that you're saying, look, you've got 2 children, you've still got life to live, and you're also continuing a bond with your brother through the signs that he's giving you, which is fabulous.
You're an amazing person, and what a great tribute to your brother. How do people get a hold of your book?
So it's available on Amazon, but it's available in any bookstore worldwide. But Amazon's the easiest way. And if people need several copies, they can directly get in touch with me.
And how do they get in touch with you?
On my email, which is PARUL_D like David, UA@yahoo.com.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
I love this because the bond that you have with your brother is definitely the bond my sisters and I had with our only brother as well. And you have such a beautiful connection with him. I'm going to show his picture. I don't know if you'll all be able to see it. Anyway, you've got to get the book because he is such a good looking guy. But I do want to read the end, and you already know what you wrote. This is to your brother from you. And you say, to my dearest Manu, then I carried you in my arms. Now I carry you in my heart. You are done fighting. Now rest, baby brother. Your fight may be over, but not your journey. You will continue to live through your words. And in my next life, may I be so privileged to call you my brother. Till we meet again, love, Didi, which means older sister.
Yeah, and I'll show you something if you can see. Can you see that?
There you are.
I love that, you and your little brother.
I carried him in my arms.
That's beautiful. And for those that are listening, there's a lot of words of wisdom in this book and a lot of wonderful things that will be uplifting and to help you on your journey. Well, thank you again for being on the show. It's just been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing to build awareness about
Yes.
oral cancer. And I know that Manu continues to be your guiding light. And thank you for sharing him with us today.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for joining us on this show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.